All right, and welcome into the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast, Week 8 Reaction Edition. It's Halloween weekend for many around the country, and Week 8 was certainly a spooky one for fantasy football managers. Tonight, we'll tell you everything you need to know on the program. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock, and I am joined by an orthopedic sports surgeon. He is trained at places like Stanford and Harvard, and now he brings you injury analysis right here at Fantasy Pros, Dr. Deepak Chona. Deepak, I'd love for you to get off a weekend, my friend. I know you're very busy, but that's just not the case as injuries kept on coming today.
Yeah, but we're here for it. We're ready. As long as the Texans keep winning, I'm ready for whatever you got.
I appreciate it, man. Also providing the fantasy analysis tonight is the brain trust behind Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros, Scott Bogman. Happy Sunday, Boggs.
What a Sunday it was, too. I mean, we were on here getting ready to do this show at the end of this Washington-Chicago craziness, and a lot of fun finishes in the first set as well. What a Sunday.
Absolutely. The outline for tonight's program, we'll get into injuries with Deepak, then we'll get to Scott's second half sprouts, and of course, we'll recap all 13 games tonight, the winners, the losers, some trade targets, some early waiver wire, everything in between. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. We greatly appreciate you hanging out with us each and every Sunday night. If you enjoyed this type of content, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new to the Fantasy Pros channel. We got great content coming for you every single day of the week. And let's go ahead and jump right into the injuries here, gentlemen, where, my goodness, it was a busy slate here for us, starting with New England Patriots quarterback Drake May, who scored a rushing touchdown early and then exited with a concussion. Deepak, we have learned over the years from you that a concussion, it's a non-linear injury, but what does your data say with the Patriots signal caller potentially being ready to go against the Titans next week?
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely a chance. However, the data does favor him sitting. So okay, we'll just have to watch his progression through the protocol. It's very well defined at this point, but we will need him to kind of advance a little faster than average in order to get cleared.
Boggs, we did see the Patriots pull this one out against the Jets, but can we trust any New England pass catcher without Drake May out there?
No. Absolutely not. I don't trust anybody without Drake May, and I don't trust most of them with Drake May.
Okay. Sticking with the quarterback position here, we had Green Bay Packers quarterback Jordan Love. He left with a groin injury. This was a weird one, Deepak. I initially thought it was a knee injury. He kind of gutted it out for a little bit. It came back. It looked like it was ultimately a groin injury is what the team is calling it. What do you think happened here? What do you think the timeline is for Jordan Love?
Yeah, the average on these even mild versions is 1 to 2 weeks. And the reason is because when players rush back, then they do so at a high re-injury risk. And now we also know Jordan Love had an injury earlier this year.
Yes.
So the combination, it can still have some impact. And a normal person would be rehabbing that injury probably still at this point. So keeping this in mind, they may miss Jordan Love this coming week. I think we're going to just have to watch the practice reports to find out, but I think it's going to be a close call. And I would lean towards him sitting at this point.
Okay, and Boggs, this is so disappointing because next weekend against the Lions was going to be an absolute banger in the NFC North there. How do we approach the Packers pass catchers if Love can't go?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. You know, you're going to have a lot of borderline calls with your bench guys, depending on your bye weeks, of course. But Malik Willis is not, he's not a nothing. He's not a zero. He's been okay in replacement of Love. He's had more practice time as well now. So, there's a little glimmer of hope, especially if they get down. They probably will need to pass a lot. And there's not a hotter offense than the Lions right now.
Yeah, great point with that. And maybe the biggest injury of the day, gentlemen. Houston Texans wide receiver Stephon Diggs suffers a non-contact knee injury. Deepak, say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. And tell me it's not the dreaded ACL tear, please.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely my biggest concern. And I would say probably highest likelihood based on the video. You kind of see the knee buckle a little bit. And as it's doing that, that is usually going to be associated with an ACL tear. So we'll have to find out over the next day or two. I'm guessing they will announce it, but MRI will be pending on this one. And they so far have just said he's getting evaluated. So we really don't know for sure.
Boggs, if it is an ACL tear and they do shut down Diggs for the season, what does it mean for CJ Stroud? First of all, he has scored just 20 fantasy points once this season, and other Houston pass catchers. We know no Nico Collins, at least for next week. And Tank Dell has kind of been a little bit of a spark plug, but still disappointing compared to his rookie season overall.
Yeah, I mean, Stroud really hasn't been the same since Nico went down. So I think Nico is the biggest part of getting Stroud right. So when he comes back, I think they will absolutely be right. I like that Deepak's nodding his head. And Tank Dell obviously spikes for the next couple weeks, or at least the next week without Nico. And Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie are probably going to be the guys. I'm hoping to see a little more John Mechie, but we'll see in terms of snaps. But Hutchinson is definitely going to take a big step up next week.
Yeah, he was kind of the guy that we initially saw take a little bit jump up in the routes run in snap counts once we saw Nico go down. So potentially maybe the same thing. We got Bobby Trees back there returning punts. So I don't think he'll be on the field for an offensive drive.
Prime.
Yeah, I'd say so. Can still return a mean punt, though.
Yeah.
Can still return a mean punt for sure. Deepak, let's look at the Jacksonville Jaguars here, where rookie wide receiver Brian Thomas, he suffered a rib injury. And we also had wide receiver Christian Kirk exit with a shoulder injury. Kirk looked like he was in a ton of pain. What are your initial diagnosis of these two injuries, my friend?
Yeah, with Christian Kirk, we see the video where he lands directly on the sort of tip of the shoulder. And the kind of two most common things would be either a fracture of the clavicle, which would be a several week injury, often surgery as well, or more likely an AC joint sprain, which is kind of on the tip right there. And that can be as little as a 1 week return, but more commonly with the sort of energy that he landed with, I would expect this to be 2 to 3 weeks if it isn't medium severity AC joint sprain. So that's kind of what you'd be hoping for, I think, if you're a Jags fan.
Okay, so expecting him back still this season, not like the season ender he had last year. And then what about Brian Thomas here? Are we expecting him back anytime soon here with this rib injury? We did see Jane Daniels go down with a rib injury last week. Mom said on Twitter, hey, he's all good. And then he just comes out and has the game of his life this week.
Yeah, you're totally right. And a lot of these rib injuries can be played through. For wide receivers, you usually do see a performance dip, and that's somewhere around 20% or so, depending on the severity. So we'll have to watch the practice reports more than anything else, because we don't really have a clear kind of instance where this happened. He did land hard in the end zone, and I think that's probably when this happened, but no indication of severity yet.
Okay, Bogman, obviously Evan Ingram would get a bump if either of these wide receivers were to miss time, but Gabe Davis also suffered some type of injury as well here. So who do you have circled on the waiver wire for the receiving core? Could it be the former Penn State Nittany line,
It's your
Parker
boy.
Washington himself?
Of course, it's your boy. Parker Washington has looked awesome. Also, a couple 2 tight end sets with Strange out there as well, another Penn State guy. So, I think, we might be running some Penn State offense here for the Jaguars if all these guys do miss the next week.
Okay. And Bogman, anything else here for Deepak in a day that was just filled with injuries? What, from the time we woke up even to right now, we just saw Rico Dowdle rolled out for Sunday Night Football as well.
Yeah, how about T. Higgins, Deepak? Obviously, we don't have film of that, but a quad injury, do we expect that to linger much beyond this week?
Yeah, these quad injuries usually take 1 to 2 weeks on average, and that's kind of for all comers, but the severity does vary a little bit on these. The fact that they didn't rule him out early on for this game suggests to me that maybe this isn't that severe. It's just the timing of it having it happen at the end of the week is very hard to quickly bounce back. So I would expect T. Higgins to have a chance to play next week, but we'll follow practice reports to tell you the real answer there. When he does come back, he will have an elevated re-injury risk, though, because these quads do tend to get re-strained, and he also has an extensive soft tissue history himself. So that's something to just keep in mind. If he has a couple good games, maybe worth selling him high, but keep an eye out for a soon return on him.
Bogman, with that being said, Deepak said, hey, now might be the time to sell him just because we have seen re-injury risk. If you're a T. Higgins fan, sure, are you trying to get out when you can?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst idea, right? Because when you have one of these injuries, like Deepak said, the likelihood of them, isn't it the only indicator of future injury is past injury, right, Deepak? So
yeah, well, especially with these soft tissue strains, and he's just had one even as recently as a few weeks ago.
Yeah. So it may be a good time if he comes back and has a great game to try to pedal him off.
Okay. Well, guys, make sure you're plugged into Deepak on Twitter. He's putting out threads, videos every single week. So make sure you're staying up to date with him at SportsMD Analysis. He's also on Instagram, on YouTube as well. I think you also have a website. Is that correct, Deepak?
Yep, sportsmananalytics.com, but you nailed the rest already. So we'll keep it churning every week on here as well.
Awesome. Well, Deepak, I'm looking forward to seeing you here back next week. Hopefully a little bit lighter of an injury slate for you to cover, but always appreciate you, my friend. And guys, make sure you stick around for us. Boggs and I, we're going to get into Scott's second half sprouts here right after the break. Thank you.
The fantasy season is like running a marathon. Checking your lineup, tracking injury news, making trades, Monday night waivers. You've got to show up day in and day out for 17 weeks. So how do you dominate your league without it feeling like a second job? The answer is My Playbook. Syncing your league with My Playbook is totally free, and it makes winning your league easy. You'll get a personal dashboard that has everything you need to know all in one place. News and notes for your players, bye-week alerts, matchup info, it's all there. Our League Analyzer gives you power rankings for your league and shows you how the experts rate your team. We even have an AI model that studies injuries and tells you which of your players are going to play this week. And for premium users, there's every possible advantage you can think of. Set the lineup the experts would start with just a single click. Get instant waiver suggestions and trade suggestions anytime. You can even put your lineup on autopilot and have us set it for you. So this season, take your time back and dominate your league like never before. Start for free today with the My Playbook app or at fantasypros.com/myplaybook.
All right, folks, it is time for Scott's second half sprouts, where we will highlight one young player who we'll call a seed who's ready to sprout and break out to help your fantasy team down the stretch. Who is your Scott second half sprout, Scott Bogman?
Man, how could it not be Cedric Tillman? I mean, Ladd McConkey had a great game too, so it was kind of tough to choose between both of these guys. But with Tillman really taking a step up last week, after the trade of Amari Cooper to an 82% snap share, he also had another big snap share this week, and obviously a very productive game with Jameis in there. 9 targets, 7 catches, 99 yards, and 2 scores. Just a great game for Cedric Tillman here, and this is just going to be what the offense is with Jameis. They're going to be passing a lot. You're going to see a lot of passes that could almost be picks and a lot of passes that could be touchdowns as well. So bring some excitement and at least a boost to the rest of the Browns offense as well. So
I don't think this is like a huge surprise from a prospect profile because Cedric Tillman, when he was at Tennessee, the guy was a weapon. And like before he ended up having an injury there, he was really the wide receiver one in that offense. Kind of took a step back his final year at Tennessee, but was still a good prospect coming in. Had some good preseason games with the Browns in the past, including the Hall of Fame game in his debut. So I don't think from a prospect standpoint, this is a surprise. And now we're seeing Jameis unlock this offense. So I think it's like full send on Tillman, right?
Absolutely. And, this is another, big part of why they traded Amari Cooper is because they had Cedric Tillman waiting in the wings to take this role. So now that Deshaun Watson's out of there and they can actually have somebody throw the ball forward. I see it's wheels up on Tillman moving forward.
He kind of reminds me of just one of those players we've seen year in and year out that could really be someone in championship weeks that you're starting in your wide receiver 3 or your flex spot. Like, I think that's really what we're looking at. I mean, maybe that changes. Maybe Jameis comes back down to earth. Maybe we see more from Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore out there. But I think bottom line, I love this call from you, man. So good on you.
Appreciate it.
And just like your fantasy team, your lawn also needs the right care to thrive, especially during the fall here. And I bet you didn't know that fall is the perfect time to treat your lawn. Give your lawn a boost with Scott's Turf Builder Winter Guard. Recover from summer, prep for winter, and lay the foundation for a strong, healthy lawn come spring. Scott's Winter Guard strengthens your grass roots, repairs summer damage, and prepares your lawn for winter so you can enjoy the fall without worrying about your yard. So don't wait. Pick up a bag of Scott's Turf Builder Winter Guard today. Feed your lawn. Feed it. All right. Let's go ahead and move to the game recaps here. We're just 1 week after the Browns lose Deshaun Watson for the season. The Browns scored over 20 points for the first time on the season, beating the Ravens 29-24. I don't know if you saw that Venn diagram meme. It was like, have you scored 20 points this season? It was like all the college teams, all the NFL teams except the Browns. Hey, they've now joined that club here. Jameis Winston does what he does best, and he slung the pigskin around the yard for 334 yards and 3 touchdowns. Huge gains from all the pass catchers. We talked about Cedric Tillman. We talked about Elijah Moore and Jerry Jeudy a little bit. And David Njoku continues to be a threat as well. What is sticky here, though? Because it seems unlikely that 4 guys can eat every single week, right?
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, I don't know that they're going to pass the ball 41 times. Stefanski is ultimately a run-first guy. But I think Tillman and Winston have an instant connection. We saw an increase for Chubb in his carry, 16 for 52, also 41 of 69 snaps. Pierre Strong only had 14, Foreman only had 13. So we're moving more towards the Chubb train taking off here. And it's so great to see Jameis in here, even though this is going to be wild swings. I mean, we didn't expect them to beat Baltimore. I don't think anybody really did. You hate to see it, right, Seth?
Yeah.
But we didn't expect that to happen. But he looked good, and there's going to be big swings with him. There's going to be bad games and good games. And he's way more of a wild card, but at least there's something viable in this offense now, and we're raising everybody here.
I honestly thought a little bit this morning about putting some money on the money line Browns just because it's a new quarterback bump, dude.
Yeah.
You see it every time. New QB bump, new head coach bump. And on the other side of the ball here was the usual suspects for the Ravens. Any takeaways for the Baltimore side of things other than that you and I are very happy as Steelers fan to see them go down here?
I mean, Mark Andrews 3 weeks in a row, and I was a couple weeks ago, I was like, it's dead. It's over. I have to eat the L on that one. I was completely wrong. 3 touchdowns in 3 straight weeks. Or a touchdown in 3 straight weeks. Mark Andrews is looking good. Another great game for Zay when he was even kind of questionable. And of course, Henry is Henry. And Lamar is Lamar. So not a lot in terms of analysis, but Mark Andrews looking like a viable guy moving forward. And it was just so miserable to start. I didn't know if he could recover, but he's looked great.
With that being said, can we drop Isaiah Likely 4 for 47 here? And I just feel like with the emergence of other tight ends out there that we'll talk more about today, it was National Tight End Day, of course, and they showed up for us brilliantly. Is it time to get away from Likely, you think?
Yeah, I mean, you can for sure. There's enough out there, especially after this week, as you mentioned, to make him kind of a flyer and a droppable spot to add somebody else you need for sure.
Okay, let's go ahead and move forward to Houston in a game that the Texans did their best to leave the door open for the Colts. They did win 23-20 for the Colts. This passing pie remains extremely small, just 175 yards for Anthony Richardson. But Josh Downs seemingly still somewhat quarterback proof, had 109 of them, bounced back after a bad game last week. How do you feel about him and Jonathan Taylor moving forward? JT scores 18.7 fantasy points in his return after 3 missed contests.
I mean, I feel a little bit better about Downs than I do Pittman, who is hurt and, not practicing and then still playing and now not getting any targets and catches because Richardson. I mean, this is the whole thing. It's, now that we've got Watson out, I think we need to get Richardson out for the rest of this offense to take off. I know the Colts don't want to do it. He weirdly checked out of the game and then went back in. He's not an NFL level quarterback yet. All the raw skills are there for him to be awesome. Very, very good. And they're trying to have him learn on the job. And they were in this game, which is another reason why we probably won't see a move to Flacco. But I don't really trust anything that's not Jonathan Taylor in this Indy offense until we see something from Richardson or they go back to Flacco. It's tough right now.
If someone's willing to pay for Downs just because you said that, like I'm willing to move him, honestly. And like,
same.
I hope you moved Pittman a couple weeks ago when he was kind of on that heater a little bit as well with Flacco. So, it's a tough sell out there, man. And like, pie on my face, I'll be honest. Like, I've been a big A-Rich guy, and I don't know. I mean, he's super raw. Like what? He's played 20-some games since high school, Bob. I mean, like, do you think there's ever a chance from a dynasty lens that he does get better eventually?
Yes, this is, and especially if he gets benched, if you're in a dynasty league, go buy low on A-Rich because all of the talent is there. He just needs experience, and you get that by starting more. Hopefully he gets better on the job. I just don't know that we can expect it this season. I mean, what was it, 10 for 32? Miserable today. 175 yards and touchdown, and most of that was on the big play to Josh Downs. So Taylor's still very good. He'll help that whole offense out. But yeah, it is tough for the Colts right now.
My biggest buy in dynasty league, I have Stroud and Richardson as my quarterbacks. And I like before the season, I was like, nope, don't need no quarterbacks. I traded a bunch of my early picks. I'm like, I don't want Daniels. I don't want May. And now I'm kind of regretting that a little bit. But I'm looking at you, Shador. Maybe you're my next guy. I might need to tag you in next year. Meanwhile, the Texans, they are 6-2, but for fantasy football purposes, we mentioned they've kind of been disappointing. Just one really good game so far for CJ Stroud this season. However, Joe Mixon, I mean, this guy is an absolute weapon out there, Boggs. Scored over 23 fantasy points in each game he has finished this season. Where do you rank Mixon rest of the season? And do you think everyone gets a little bit better once Nico comes back as well, as you kind of alluded to earlier?
I do, but I mean, Mixon is an RB1, and he is.
Could he be the RB1? Like, could he be? I mean, he's up there, man.
I mean, he can for sure, especially with all these targets going down. Diggs going down, Nico coming back, and is he 100% when he comes back? Tank Dell has an extensive injury history, so there is a lot. There's a bigger path towards Mixon touches this season, so it's just about keeping him healthy. He's a little bit older of a back, so. But yeah, they gave everything to him, and Agumba Wale was in there, and Pierce barely saw the field in this game. Only 4 snaps for Pierce, 54 for Mixon, and 13 for Agumba Wale. So it is the Mixon show in Houston until Nico gets back for sure.
Wow. And if you had to plug your nose and pick up either John Mechie or Hutchinson, It is Hutch
by a lot. Yeah, I love Mechie, and I thought Mechie was going to be awesome coming out. Obviously, started his career with the cancer and everything, and he's been coming back from that. But Hutchinson gets more snaps, he gets more routes. I think he's going to be on the field a lot this week. So, not saying that Mechie can't be, but Mechie this week was still behind Woods and Hutch. So, yeah, Dell, Hutch, Diggs, Woods, all ahead of Mechie. So maybe they make a change because they don't like what they see from Woods and he's on the field more, but he's still third firmly behind Dell and Hutch. So
okay. And keep in mind as well, they do play on Thursday night. The Houston Texans do in the New York Jets Stadium, MetLife there. So just something to kind of keep in mind that if you do want to pick up someone like Mechie or Hutchinson, you're kind of, I don't want to say you're burning a roster spot because they could be guys, for the long stretch they need to have rostered, but doesn't give you a lot of flexibility heading into the weekend is all. Let's go to Jacksonville, where I had my heart absolutely ripped out here as the Jaguars backdoor covered as 3.5-point underdogs, losing 27-30 to the Packers. We've already talked about Green Bay and what it means if Jordan Love is out there. But put that aside for a minute. How good is Tucker Kraft? He was already tight end 4 coming into this week. He just dropped 16.8 PPR points today as well. Is he a legit tight end 1 rest of season?
yeah.
And does his emergence also hurt guys like Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely hurts those touchdown dependent guys more, right? Because you need Watson to either have a gigantic play, you need Wicks to have a gigantic play, and Wicks specifically was down to only 21 snaps in this game. It was Dobbs at 59, Watson at 52, Reed at 41, and then Wicks all the way down to 21. So, yeah, I mean, he takes away from those touchdown dependent guys for sure. Dobbs is becoming more reliable. I think we're all okay with Jaden Reed, even though it's been pretty miss here recently, more than hit. It was hit early in the season. Hasn't been great recently, but I think I'm still okay with those guys. But yeah, Watson and Wicks are they're touchdown dependent. Yeah, and Kraft is getting the touchdowns. So yeah.
I just don't think there's enough defensive players that can cover all the, Kraft was running wide open at points in this game, like absolutely wide open, no one within 5 yards of him, which is crazy. But I mean, wow. Okay, like rest of season, Mark Andrews or Tucker Kraft?
I'm gonna stick with Kraft in that one. I mean, the bottom out that we could see from Andrews, we've already had it early in the year. Hopefully that's it. But they just have so many weapons in Baltimore, and the game plan can change from passing to running so quickly. I'd rather have Kraft. I think that game plan is the same all the time.
Kyle Pitts, who had 2 touchdowns, or Kraft?
Ooh, yeah, still probably Kraft, but it depends. I'll tell you what, it really depends on how long Jordan Love is going to miss. If he's going to miss three to 4 weeks, then it's definitely Pitts. It's definitely Andrews, right?
Okay.
But we'll see there. But he's a tight end 1, even if Malik Willis is in there, because the tight ends are not great.
Okay. We did touch on the Jaguars a little bit too, and what it could mean with some of these injured wide receivers. My only question for you is, how long does Doug Peterson last as the head coach after a 2-6 start? And if we do see changes there, what do you think happens to this offense as well? Could it be a complete disaster? Could it be a good thing? Could we get away from Press Taylor? Like, it just feels like a lot of question marks if you have Jaguars rostered and you're trying to make a push for your championship here.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how the offense changes. Hopefully we get more clarity on a running back. But that's not going to make, the wide receiver core any better. I would also love to see Trevor Lawrence run the ball more. He did it in college. It's a weapon in the bag. They don't ever use it right now. They didn't with Urban Meyer either. I understand you don't want to run your franchise, but let the dude use all the tools in the toolbook to get this job done. So I think we'll get more clarity in roles should Doug Peterson go, but that's about it. I wouldn't expect a massive improvement in the offense. So if you wanted to get out from under Jaguars now, I would understand that.
Yeah, I had an offer in one of my co-managed leagues this morning, Travis Etienne for JSN straight up, and me and my co-manager, we really had a long, hard thought about it because you know what I mean?
Like, it's tough to trade for a guy in JSN whose role is different every single week.
Right.
When Etienne could be the back, but Bigsby is pushing him out, it looks like. So yeah, that's a tough trade. Curious, I would have to see the rest of your roster to recommend one way or the other.
Yeah, well, let's just say we've been throwing Ray Davis in the RB2. We drafted McCaffrey in the first round, so
better keep Etienne then.
Yeah. And before we continue, if you want a chance to win a signed Justin Jefferson helmet for free, courtesy of our friends over at pristineauction.com, all you need to do is head over to fantasypros.com/contest, complete the form, and either A, download the Fantasy Pros Draft Wizard app. B, leave a review for the podcast. Or C, follow us on X, Instagram, or TikTok at Fantasy Pros. The more actions you complete, the more entries you will receive. We'll be announcing a winner right here on the podcast. So if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe, turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize if you are that one lucky winner. All right. Meanwhile, I hope you got your Lions Super Bowl tickets in because they look like the best team right now. They just beat the Titans at home 52-14 in short order. But honestly, the Titans, they kind of plagued themselves here, 4 turnovers, and the Lions didn't have to do a whole lot. They only ran 47 plays, only 225 total yards here as well. But everyone came through from a fantasy standpoint here, despite Jared Goff just having 85 passing yards. How do you rank these Lions skill players rest of the season, Bogman?
They're still very, very good.
Is Amon-Ra still like the best skill player you could have on this team? Probably right then quickly after Gibbs, I would imagine.
Yeah, you're not going to see a time of possession this lopsided again, I don't think, for many teams. It was 35-37 for Tennessee and 24-23 for Detroit. So Detroit just scored too fast. Everything Detroit did worked in this game. This was
even Montgomery's pass.
Even Montgomery's pass. It was just a miserable game for the Titans defense. And luckily they didn't have to be out there that long. Mason Rudolph did his best, but they let a punt return get as well. So just all 3 phases were awful for Tennessee in this game. Even against Green Bay, against a backup quarterback, I expect more fight from Green Bay next week because the defense will step up. So yeah, this is a game that you look at and you go, this is gross. If you're starting Sam Laporte, is still great because he finally had a decent game.
Yeah.
You wish Amon-Ra had more catches in a victory this big. You wish for more carries and yards from Monty, but he had a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown. So you'll live with it. So just a weird game overall for the Lions. So I'm not moving any of them based on this one.
Yeah, agreed with you there. For the Titans, meanwhile, we've been only really starting Tony Pollard for a few weeks now. Does Calvin Ridley enter the fray now without DeAndre Hopkins? 15 targets, 10 receptions, 143 yards. They play New England next week in a game that could decide the first overall pick in next year's draft.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't even think it's trading Hopkins. It's the defense being this miserable is what is making these pass catchers more viable because the Titans are having to play from behind. I mean, Mason Rudolph threw the ball 38 times in this game. I can guarantee you that was not the game plan going in here. You do not want Mason Rudolph throwing the ball almost 40 times.
Yes.
So Ridley having 15 targets is not surprising. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, I believe, has had a touchdown in 3 straight weeks, and he saw a big increase. He actually led the Titans in snaps and routes by 1 route over Ridley, but 10 snaps as well. And he has scored 3 straight weeks. So just if the Titans are going to be bad, luckily for them, they're not going to have that type of game next week because they play New England.
Yeah.
So it is just Tony Pollard again. But I can see moving forward that some of these guys become, especially Ridley, but some of these guys becoming somewhat viable. And, in bye weeks and injury replacement, you may be looking at some Titans if they're in a game where they're 10-point dogs because they're going to be passing the ball a lot to play catch up in those ones.
Yeah, I think the line was like 11.5 in that. I'm like, man, that's a lot of points for an NFL game. Was not enough. Yeah, not enough. Meanwhile,
looked like a college game, that one.
Yes. Meanwhile, in the NFC South, the Falcons took control of the division, winning 31-26 in Tampa Bay. 4 touchdowns for Kirk Cousins, courtesy of Darnell Mooney, Bijan Robinson, and Kyle Pitts, who found the end zone twice. 3 touchdowns, 330 yards for Baker Mayfield. He's kind of like a Jameis Winston. He just keeps slinging it. Doesn't matter who he's thrown to. Doesn't matter how many interceptions he's throwing. And it was Cade Auden who came down with 2 of those, 9 for 81, 2 touchdowns on 10 targets for the tight end there. And the running backs combined for 13 targets. We weren't sure Bucky Irving was going to be active. He ended up being active despite some mixed reporting. Do you think it's really these running backs and the tight end here who are going to be the biggest beneficiaries with no Chris Godwin or no Mike Evans? Or do you expect McMillan and this other group of ancillary pass catchers to step up down the road?
Yeah, I do think McMillan will become much better. Led them in snaps today with 59. Also had 7 targets, only 4 catches for 35 yards. Just a rough game for the Bucks overall. Mayfield is, he, like you said, he doesn't care who's out there. He is slinging that rock.
He'll throw his in and just get it going.
50 passes here, just so much for him. But yeah, Ricky White has looked good. It's just messy, right? Rashad White, speaking of the UNLV wide receiver here. Rashad White, 41 snaps, Bucky 31, Tucker down to 7. Tucker's a safe drop at this point. I feel like, maybe he sees an increased role when they're not losing so bad, but
yeah,
it's still Rashad. It's still Bucky. And I think McMillan's going to be a big step up, but Cade Otton leading in targets with 10. That is the biggest step up right now because this guy has been on the field the whole year. He barely ever comes off the field. But when you have the running backs and you have Evans and you have Godwin, your 5th, 6th look in most plays, now you become the 2nd look, the 3rd look in most plays. And we're just going to see, with the Bucks passing this much, a big uptick for Otton.
Should Sterling Shepard continue to be rostered? We know him and Baker have a lot of chemistry from their days back at Oklahoma. However, we didn't see the biggest performance from him despite the 50 passing attempts here from Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably not. Right now, it's McMillan at 59 snaps, Trey Palmer at 51, and then Shepard down at 31. Ryan Miller had 30. Raheem Jarrett had 20 and also led them in receiving. So I think this is more of a mix of that 3rd spot with McMillan and Palmer on the field way more than everybody else.
Okay, and we will get Mike Evans back here in a couple weeks as well, which should change things up a little bit. So
for sure.
And dude, looking at this Patriots Jet game, things could have not gotten much worse for the Jets. They're now 2-6. They lose to the Patriots here 25-22. And this is a game I think the Jets really should have won. They outgained New England, but they just keep struggling to score in the red zone, which is crazy because that's where Aaron Rodgers in this Nate Hackett offense used to flourish. Like inside the gold zone, like they were money all the time. Garrett Wilson, he has proved to be one of the best buy lows in fantasy. He was the wide receiver 5 coming into the week. He caught 5 of 8 targets for 113 yards, while Devontae Adams has now failed to reach double-digit PPR points in back-to-back weeks. Do these trends continue here next week against the Texans on Thursday Night Football?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good situation to lose another game, another close one to a division opponent. And now you only have 4 days of rest to go play Houston. I mean, Houston's down pieces too, and it's a Thursday. Mm-hmm. So, who knows what happens in that game. I'm sure it's going to be ugly, but I mean, you can trust Breece. You can trust Garrett Wilson. I mean, if you want to throw in Conklin and hope for a touchdown, I'm okay with that. Adams is borderline right now. I think he's going to get better, but the Texans are a really tough matchup. They have a good secondary, so don't really like it for this week. I think Breece and Wilson are the only guys who really want to start.
Where do you think Breece is rest of the season? If you had to put all the running backs together, is he still in the top 5? I mean, he's had great games back-to-back coming into this one, but we did see a lot of Braylon Allen here this weekend, even find the end zone.
Yeah, Breece just shows up. Like Braylon Allen got this touchdown late. I think, and he's more of a goal line back. It should be more if you're at the 1, it should be Braylon Allen. He's enormous, so it makes more sense there. But I have no issues with Breece Hall. He just shows up. Whether if he's not rushing the ball, he's catching the ball. He gives it to you one way or the other every single week. So I'm fine with Breece Hall. I don't want to do anything with him.
For the Patriots, can we drop guys like Antonio Gibson, Demario Douglas? We've thought these guys were rosterable, maybe even startable in the case of Douglas, but he's had a stinker here, had a couple stinkers on the season. Gibson is continuing to get less and less work each week. Ramondre really dominated the snaps here. So what do you think of these ancillary pieces for the Patriots? Are they droppable?
Abute and Bourne had more snaps than Demario Douglas here, which is, I guess not that surprising since Douglas is the slot guy. But
right.
I mean, they're just not throwing the ball. They're getting 20 rushes for Stevenson. They're not comfortable throwing the ball without Drake May. So, we'll see if we get Drake May this week. Deepak said he leans towards probably not. Not a great game here coming up against, well, I guess it is a decent matchup against Tennessee's defense, but yeah, I just, the only guy that I really want to start for New England is Stevenson, and I waiver on him a lot in the leagues where I have him. I have other options, like, it's usually comes down to between Najee and Stevenson for me. So that's a tough one at this point. So yeah, I don't really trust anything with New England now. It's tough there. Hunter Henry had the huge week last week after week 2 being enormous. I mean, 5 for 45 is fine, but he's gonna waiver with Brissett in there for sure.
Maybe keep Douglas on the roster and just see what happens. But yeah, I don't know. That might be it for me on New England, other than him and Stevenson, probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Meanwhile, Tua, he did return for the Dolphins, but it still wasn't enough as Miami falls 27-28 to the Arizona Cardinals. Tyreek Hill, 6 for 72 on 9 targets. Waddle, 4 for 45. That was awesome. But the running backs were really the big scorers for Miami. Achane, 26.7 fantasy points, and Mostert, 16 fantasy points after scoring 2 touchdowns. Is this the type of production we should expect from Miami moving forward, or could it get even better with more time with Tua back under center? Tyreek Hill said he almost cried when he learned Tua was suiting up here this week. So they play Buffalo next week.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously way better when you don't have 10 in the box because you can't throw a forward pass. Then your running backs have room to work, and that's exactly what Achane needs. And, again, not a guy that needs a ton of touches. He had 16 here. He had 147 yards and a score. So we love that. Mostert got in the end zone twice as well. It's going to get better with Hill. Waddle dropped a big one. Like at least 20 extra yards on top. So Waddle is going to get better. Also, they're not going to get to play Arizona every single week, but it was nice for this type of a game for Tua to knock the rust off. So yes, I mean, just the whole offense gets better. It's a lot like Winston going in for Cleveland. The entire offense takes a bump because we see Tua back.
For the Cardinals, big games for Trey McBride, 21.4 PPR points, and Marvin Harrison Jr., 23.1 fantasy points as well.
Finally.
Bogman, I had some managers offer up Marv last week, and I was so torn on whether or not to accept because this Miami defense has been the best against fantasy wide receivers, but because no one had to throw against them. Did I miss my window to buy Marv, and is this the jumping off point?
You should have. If somebody's still offering him, then take it, is what I'm saying. But you should have, the window should be closed at this point. And this is Marvin Harrison Jr. is a guy I'm just willing to go down with the ship, right? I'm going to recommend that you keep him or you trade for him just every single week, I think. So, yeah, I'm willing to go down with the ship with Marvin Harrison Jr. and finally getting on track here. A lot of these young wide receivers are getting on track this week. So a huge one for Marvin. And I think we expect more like this going forward as well.
I'm just happy to see a little bit more of concentrated targets here to him and McBride. We've seen so many games where Greg Dortch was getting a boatload of targets. Michael Wilson was getting a boatload of targets. So it feels really good just to see the 2 focal points that should be getting the targets actually get them.
Wilson caught the touchdown, right, which was annoying.
He keeps doing it, yeah.
But Dortch was down to 25 snaps. It was 60 for Marvin, 46 for Wilson. And yeah, McBride is the number 2 option in the pass game behind Marvin. Actually, probably still the number 1 option.
Yeah.
But yeah, Marvin's going to get more moving forward, and I love to see this production.
Let's get to the last game of the 1 p.m. slate here, where the Eagles, they won 37-27 against the Bengals.
Hate to see it.
Yeah,
hate to see it.
It warms my heart to see the Bengals struggle like this. 4.8 yards per play, 2 turnovers. Do you have any takeaways for Cincy? My only thought is that I'm done trying to make Eric All Jr. a thing after Mike Gesicki goes 7 for 73 in the absence of T. Higgins. That's all I got on the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, I want Chase Brown to take over, and he's not completely taking over. He's better every week, but 12 for 32 and a score. He only caught the 2 passes for 2 yards. Moss had 4 catches for 28 and 5 rushes, but only 11 yards. And Moss still outsnapped him by 2 snaps and ran 3 more routes. It's just annoying, this usage. I hate that it's 50-50 because I think Chase Brown is clearly better than Zach Moss at this point in the season. I don't know if, Zach Moss looked better than him early. And we were even saying like, hey, look, Chase Brown isn't getting much. You can go ahead and dump him. Now it's completely flipped. I think Chase Brown has looked way, way better. So I'm hoping that we move more towards that. But, got to see it first.
We're at least seeing the usage. We haven't seen quite the production, but still averaging 13.6 PPR points over the past 6 games is Chase Brown. So I actually think he's like a good buy low candidate this week.
Going to break through quickly, hopefully.
Agreed. And I don't think everyone's catching on out there. So I actually recommend that you go over to fantasypros.com/myplaybook and use our trade analyzer, or you can actually go to the Fantasy Football My Playbook app as well. And you can instantly evaluate how any trade will affect your team for this week, the rest of the season, or even in Dynasty. So I'm looking for Chase Brown this week over there, and I recommend you do as well using that trade analyzer over there at fantasypros.com/myplaybook. For the Eagles in this game, Jalen Hurts was a week winner, 35.1 PPR points for him on 3 rushing touchdowns. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, they both go over 80 yards here as well. Any takeaways from this game for you, Bogman?
No, I mean, I hate the vulturing of all the touchdowns because I have Saquon Barkley shares.
Same.
It's going to happen in a couple weeks. It'll probably be Barkley with 3 and Hurts with none. So, just a great game for Hurts, and Barkley still put you up the yards, but it's the usual suspects in Philly. Not a lot changing there.
Agreed. Let's go ahead. Let's jump over into the later slate here, where we have the New Orleans Saints losing the Chargers 8-26, I believe was the final score of this one. And this was another one for the Saints that felt like usual suspects showing up. Alvin Kamara, he has a good game in the passing game, gets to double-digit fantasy points just with receptions and receiving yards alone. Chris Olave, he scared us very early in this one. He went out with an injury, came back in, saw 14 targets, 8 for 107. I think they need to stick with Jake Haener, dude. Like, I don't know what Spencer Radler has on this coaching staff, but Jake Haener just looks like the better quarterback. I mean, he's coming in late in games, so you don't really know, but
right.
I just think give it to Haener, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I hope Derek Carr is back soon. That's what I hope. But in the meantime, I do think they'll go to Haener. They gave Rattler his shot, and he just has not come through. It's still too early for him. And also, you give him Denver's defense and the Chargers defense. It's not the best audition tape, right? So, especially with that O-line, it's been tough in New Orleans. So, you're right. Right now, with Derek Carr out, the only guys that you can really depend on are Kamara and Olave for the Saints. I'm trying not to start. I like Bub Means.
Right.
I like Juwan Johnson. I like these guys, but let's get an NFL caliber quarterback in there before we're starting them.
Agreed. Looking at the Chargers here, it was delightful to see Justin Herbert drop back and throw 32 times in this one. That was fun. J.K. Dobbins has another successful game for him, 17 for 57 and 1 on the ground. I think the big story, though, for the Chargers was who you alluded to earlier, a person who most made your second half sprout, Ladd McConkey, 6 for 11 or 111 and 2 touchdowns in this game. We didn't see Quentin Johnston active. Does that matter for Ladd McConkey moving forward?
It shouldn't. Ladd is a much better wide receiver, so I am very, very happy to see him finally get this run. And I think moving forward, he is just your number one target. We saw Josh Palmer make some plays as well. So, Herbert getting used to the system, banged up early, coming into the year. Also got his ankle twisted in this game by a Saints player, and his O-lineman went crazy as he should have.
Love that. I love protecting your guy.
Absolutely. He was right in there. So, I love seeing McConkey get going here. And this is what he's known for, is catching football short and making plays for Georgia. And that's what he can do for the Chargers as well, elude tackles in open space. So we just need to get the ball to him more if we're the Chargers. So I expect after this performance for him to get more looks.
Okay. Meanwhile, in Seattle, the Buffalo Bills absolutely demolished the Seattle Seahawks here, 31-10. A lot of the 448 yards for the Bills came within the first 3 quarters of this matchup. But I think there are some question marks around the pass catcher group here. We saw some big games from guys like Khalil Shakir. Keon Coleman was involved once again. Dalton Kincaid found the end zone. But Amari Cooper, just 1 target that he caught for 3 yards. What's your analysis on what's to come for this all of a sudden life filled group that is the Buffalo Bills pass catchers.
Yeah, so I think this is, Amari still getting used to the system and everything. I mean, but they had the ball for 38 minutes in this game to 21:53. The Bills held the ball. So that's why you just saw nothing from Seattle here. We'll get to them in a second. But for Buffalo, you also saw just an increase in, chances for everybody. Cook had 2 scores. Kincaid scored. Coleman scored. Shakir didn't score, but he had 9 catches for 170 yards. So just a good day to be on the Bills offense running against a tired Seattle defense in the second half. So, and they made their plays early as well. Coleman looked great. And, Cooper has kind of opened things for everybody here. So I expect Cooper to get his moving forward. We're not going to see a huge Shakir game like this again. Well, I mean, we can, but this is not going to be a weekly thing. They're not going to hold the ball for 38 minutes again. Mm-hmm. So I think Cooper was just such a good addition, and it's already paying off dividends. If it's not going even to him, it's going to everybody else. So already paying off for the Bills.
I think if you're starting any of these other options for Buffalo, the Shakirs, the Coleman, the Kincaid, even Amari on weeks, like there will be disappointing weeks because that's kind of how the Bills offense runs now, right? Like,
yeah.
So I feel like Brady doesn't want to chuck it around the yard quite a bit. They want to control the ball. They want to control the time possession. They want James Cook involved. Ray Davis continues to look good in the run he's getting. So I think there'll just be frustrating days, whether it's Amari, Coleman, whoever, but they're still not bad starts because the upside's there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is a pass first offense ultimately. So yeah, I think you want to run the ball more, but you're designed to pass. So we're still going to see a lot of passing from the Bills.
For the Seahawks, pretty terrible game for everyone not named Jackson Smith-Njigba. What happened to Tyler Lockett in this one? 1 for 9 on 3 targets. Kenneth Walker, also very disappointing. He did have 4 for 33 through the air, which didn't burn you, but 9 for 12 on the ground. Do you think these pieces just fell off because the offense fell off without DK Metcalf out there? What happened here?
Well, Metcalf was a big part of it, but again, 21 minutes of possession, 22 minutes of possession. That is really the big thing. And Ken Walker looked miserable because Connor Williams snapped the ball 3 feet over Geno Smith's head.
Yeah.
And Ken Walker had to run back 30 yards to pick the ball up and then still got 11 on that, but it was, equated to negative 19.
Yeah.
So the rest of his game was trash. They just didn't have the ball. Geno had a bad game. There was rain. It just all snowballed into a miserable performance for everyone here. And even, Charbonnet vultured Ken Walker's touchdown. And he was close down there earlier in the game as well and didn't get in. So it's just a tough game all around for the Seahawks. I don't expect it to be this bad moving forward. I think they'll get better, and hopefully Metcalf can come back pretty quick here. Fingers crossed.
If we don't see DK Metcalf next week, the Seattle Seahawks do play the Rams. Can you start Geno Smith? He's been a QB1, had a bad game, but as you alluded to, very little possession time and plays ran for the Seahawks.
I tell you what, the Rams defense is bowed up 2 weeks in a row now. So they look good. They have extra time coming in here. So it depends on, who your other options are. Lockett is still an option. JSN. I mean, they designed a lot of plays for JSN, even in this short, time of possession. He had 7 targets. So I'm okay with him and Ken Walker moving forward. But Lockett is a little bit of a question right now. Okay. And Geno is too, but they want to pass the ball. So I don't know. I probably want to start Geno, but we'll see what your other options are this week.
Okay. And before we keep it moving, I did want to remind everyone to join our Fantasy Pros Discord community. You can chat with other fans and get access to exclusive AMAs that wind up on our podcast feed. We've got a new schedule for the rest of the season. Joe, the Welsh, and Boggs, they'll be live on Mondays at 2 Eastern time in the Discord. And then on Thursdays, the Welsh and Erickson are there at 2 Eastern as well to answer your question. And then Fitz and Boggs, you guys are live on the third Tuesday of each month. You guys talk a lot of Dynasty in that episode. So come get your questions answered and be on the show at fantasypros.com/chat. Boggs, I know those are always really fun shows for you. And the Discord is just such a lively community every single day of the week.
Yeah, I love talking to everybody. I do the locker promotion as well. Won't be doing it on Monday this week. I'll be doing it on Thursday. But yeah, I just love talking to people on Discord. And, what we do is mainly just confirmation. People have an idea. Am I crazy for thinking about this? Absolutely not. That's what I would do, or give them some suggestions. So it's a lot of fun.
Moving forward here, right before we went live, the Commanders, they pull off a Hail Mary.
Woo!
My, oh my. I mean, the story of Jaden Daniels couldn't write itself any better than this. 326 passing yards for the rookie phenom, 1 touchdown. Brian Robinson Jr. was out of the end zone in this one, still had an okay day. One of his first, I would say, down performances. I don't believe he reached double-digit fantasy points, was pretty close, but I don't think got there. What are your takeaways from the Commanders? Terry McLaurin, 5 for 125. Zach Ertz, 7 for 77 on National Tight End Day. So those guys kind of feel like the main targets here. I tried to make a case a couple weeks ago for Noah Brown. I don't think
we're not one Hail Mary is great, but yeah. We'll see. He did have 6 targets, which was nice, but this was a miserable game for 3.5 quarters. It was not fun, right? Mm-hmm. That fourth quarter was insane, especially with the Hail Mary. But Terry McLaurin getting back involved, this third 100-yard game this season is awesome. Jaden Daniels just continues 326 yards in the score, plus 52 on the ground, just continues to be the rookie of the year. Before we got on, Deepak was talking about buying a MVP ticket on him as well.
Yeah,
because it's pretty nice right now. So yeah, I mean, this offense, it's Cliff Kingsbury offense, right? So they will completely abandon the run, even when it's working on occasion, like they did in this game, which is annoying. But yeah, I mean, everything for Washington's going to work right. Just the Bears play good defense.
Well, and speaking of defenses that have been bowing up lately, the Commanders, their defense all of a sudden has been excellent. Dude, I can't believe it. This was a defense. I mean, we were picking on the secondary so much early in the season. They traded their best cornerback in the offseason to the Steelers. So very surprising to see them bow up here once again. But Caleb Williams just 10 for 24, 131 yards. Big day for Swift on the ground. He's been awesome. Roschon keeps vulturing touchdowns to, if you need a spot start at the running back too, I think you can throw Roschon in there occasionally. But Swift 18 for 129 and 1 on the ground. But bad days for the likes of DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome in a matchup that we thought was great.
I mean, it was just harassing defense from this line, which it was easily the Washington's best line. And they only got 2 Caleb and brought him down twice for sacks, but he was wearing Commanders guys all night, trying to dance around, make a play. Coverage was decent as well. So just a great performance by this Washington defense. I don't expect this trend to continue, but a trend that has been great is DeAndre Swift, who I was not a big fan of coming in. I will take the L on him as well. Just this has been 3 great games in a row. 18 for 129 in the score today. Last week, he had 17 for 91 in the score, 21 and 73 for a score the week before that. And he's adding in, not this game, but 2 for 47 on through the air, 4 for 28 through the air. 4 awesome weeks, 93 and a touchdown against the Rams as well. So, I mean, touchdowns in 4 straight games. DeAndre Swift is an absolute weapon. I think Caleb Williams is going to be okay. This is a really bad game. I expect these, pass catchers to be better as well. Just, this looked like an A-Rich game for Caleb. 10 for 24 for 131 yards, and most of that was in the second half. So just a really terrible game.
Yeah, they do have Arizona next week, so probably expecting better results, I'd imagine.
Yes, please.
Let's move to Las Vegas here. Sin City, where the Chiefs, they come away with a victory, moving to 7-0 after a 27-20 victory here. We did see Patrick Mahomes finally find the end zone after a couple of quarters of not finding the end zone. 262 yards for him, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Kareem Hunt continues to be a revelation in this backfield, 21 for 59 and 1. I think we got to sell Kareem Hunt now before Pacheco comes back, right? Like this is your time. This is your time.
Yeah, it is. And how much can his old body hold up with 27, 22, 21 carries? I mean, just so many carries for Kareem Hunt right now. And again, it's even more amazing that every team had 2 weeks to get him and none of them did. he could be the starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys right now.
Oh,
Second.
yeah.
I mean, so just surprising how productive he's been. Obviously, a lot of that is just from the Chiefs offense and the threat of Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, Kareem Hunt's been great. We got Travis Kelce to have his best game on National Tight End Day, 10 catches for 90 and a score. Worthy got in the end zone as well.
Yes.
Hopkins still, working into this system and going to be a big part of it moving forward, but only 2 for 29 in this game. But yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes had his first touchdown in whatever it was, 3 games or whatever. But yeah, Chiefs offense is still pretty good. Not quite humming on all cylinders right now, but they're picking up pace.
Well, I think it's just going to get better as D-Hop gets more integrated into this scheme. He's going to draw coverage away from Travis Kelce. We saw that one in this one. So yeah. I like
Juju out, Hopkins out too. Like those guys will be back. So yeah, this is going to get better.
Would you keep? I saw Juju dropped in a couple leagues this week with him being out. Would you pick him up and just stash him in your IR slot potentially with Hopkins coming in, or do you think it's kind of Joe over for the run we saw with Juju?
Yeah, I'm not like I'm not burning rubber to go pick up Juju. I mean, I think it's just so big and rotational, and if they really thought Juju was not only going to be a big piece but last, I don't think they trade for DeAndre Hopkins. So yeah, I think the writing's on the wall for Juju.
Bad game for the Raiders all the way around. We even saw Desmond Ridder come in and play a snap. I don't think he ever fired a pass in this one, but he was in the game. Gardner Minshew, 209 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. One of those came courtesy of Jacoby Myers. Great to see him back on the field. He's always a fun player. 6 for 52 and 1 for Myers. I think he'll continue to have flex value. Brock Bowers, 5 for 58. I'm a little disappointed in Bowers, but, what do you expect, I guess, when Gardner Minshew's out there throwing the ball? But the Chiefs have been one of the worst matchups for tight ends, so I thought Bowers was going to have a big game on National Tight End Day, so I had the anytime touchdown ticket on him. That didn't come through. What's your takeaways on Las Vegas? Like, if you haven't already, I think you can pretty much cut everyone on this team aside from Madison, who continues to get totes. Terrible day from him on the ground, but 5 receptions. I think it's Madison, it's Jacoby, and it's Brock Bowers here. And if you want to mess around with Trey Tucker, you can, but I don't think you need to.
That's exactly right. I mean, they do have Cincinnati next week, so I expect the offense to be better, right? I expect Madison to look better. He's getting touches, but he is at this point, because the line is so bad and he's just not that great, he is touchdown dependent. That is what Madison has become right now, so difficult. But yeah, Bowers and Myers are your starters for this team. Nobody else. You don't want to. If you can get out from under Madison, great. But he is getting touches, so we're not dropping him.
Yeah. Let's go and round out the program here in Denver, the Rocky Mountain High State, where the Broncos win 28-14 against the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young was the starter for the Panthers this week after Andy Dalton was in a car accident. I believe he injured his wrist, was unable to go in this one, but still, Bryce Young, I don't want to say he looked good, but he looked better than I am accustomed to Bryce Young seeing. 224 passing yards, completed 24 of 37 for 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Chuba Hubbard continues to be just one of the best values in fantasy drafts. However, just kind of a disappointing day overall from any of these pass catchers not named Xavier Legette. Of course, we did not have Deontay Johnson out in this one, but there's a guy, Jalen Coker, who's starting to run around out there quite a bit. 4 for 78 and 1. Any interest in Coker, or is it really just Legette and Hubbard and Deontay you're continuing to roster?
It has to be a pretty deep league for me to be interested in Jalen Coker, because his score was awesome. It was a nice score, but it was in garbage time. And, the reason why you don't want to tell people that Bryce Young looked good is because that would be a lie. He was fine, but 2 picks, the garbage touchdown late, a lot of those yards late as well. Better than he looked before, but still not good. And even Chuba's tough, because how quickly does Brooks become involved, and how does he look when he comes in? Does he look like a rookie, or does he go out there and look really good? So I don't know, man. I kind of hope Chuba Hubbard gets traded to, the Dallas idea. I think is fantastic, or just somewhere else would be great. But yeah, there's not a lot to like here. It is Legette, Deontay Johnson again. Hopefully he gets traded somewhere else and we can put him with a better quarterback. But I don't want to start anybody in Carolina with Bryce Young back there. Chuba Hubbard kind of included. I mean, they're like, I'd rather have him than Madison in some spots, but you know, he's been good. I just don't trust anything unless Dalton's back there. Everything changes when Dalton's in there, I think.
Would you trade Chuba Hubbard right now if someone out there is running back needy? And what would you maybe be looking for to get in return for him?
Yeah, you'd probably need like, you know, a wide receiver 2 range guy to get Chuba right now. I think that is fair market price. I think, you know, people would they'll try to lowball you because Brooks is coming back, but I'd probably hold out for somewhere in that range.
Okay. And for Denver, Bo Nix. I mean, Bo Nix continues to get better for fantasy. I know in the ECR, we had him ranked very high. He was a top 12 quarterback, came through for you. 284 passing yards, 3 touchdowns in this one. Also got into the end zone over the top as a rusher as well. So loved what we saw there. I was really disappointed, though, with Javonte Williams. Everyone thought maybe this was a spot start for him. 17 for 44. Had a couple red zone carries, couple goal line carries. Couldn't find his way in. How do you feel about him and McLaughlin? Like, we've dropped McLaughlin a long time ago, but 8 for 47 in this one. I don't know.
It's still Javonte. I mean, he had 17 carries, right? Just couldn't find it. Yeah, he had 4 catches as well, so 21 touches. Like, Javonte's still their guy. So I'm okay with him. Bad day at the office for him, but I mean, Bo Nix looked outstanding. He got Cortland Sutton back involved, who fed us the donut last week. So love to see that. Troutman scored on tight end day. Nobody else really consistently will perform in this offense for you. It is Nix in a good spot.
Yes.
It's Sutton. And it's
when
Javonte.
You're feeling ballsy. Yeah. When you're feeling ballsy.
I started him over Mahomes this week, Nick. So
wow. Good.
Worked out for me.
Yeah, good call for you. I took him on the anytime TD just because I had a feeling I didn't really trust Javonte, but I was like, maybe Bo Nix can come in here. But everyone scores rushing touchdowns against the Panthers. I think that's something to keep in mind as we continue to move forward. But Bogman, I think that's going to do it for us tonight on Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, tuning in. Until next time, make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments below who saved your week number 8 or who sunk it. We want to hear from you. Also, subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel and podcast feed. It's the easiest way to support all the work we're doing here at FP. Let's download the My Playbook app today. For Scott Bogman, I am Seth Woolcock. Thanks y'all so much for watching. We'll catch you next time here on the channel. Until then, y'all know what to do. Take care.